Welcome to Profound Shifts. I am your host, Nate Prince. In pursuit of growth for the mind, body, and soul, we talk to humanity's pioneers, game changers, healers, and disruptors to help you make the profound shifts in your life that lead to peace, joy, freedom, and abundance. Are you ready for a life of growth? All right. Hey, guys. So we're here with Colter Smith on another episode with Profound Shifts, where we're going to talk about all kinds of amazing things. Taoism, Stoicism, the pitfalls of self-development, and a Die Before You Die workshop that gives profound experiences. We'll dive into that later on in the episode. So first off, Colter, how you doing, man?
Loving life.
Yes.
It is a gift to be human.
It is definitely a gift to be human, and it's a gift to have you on this show, brother. So I just want to say thank you for that. So pitfalls of self-development. I think this is something that we need to jump into because, like so many out there, we start learning about this way to start growing and building ourselves and evolving as people and as beings, as citizens, as mothers, as fathers, as entrepreneurs, as just people. And I think that there's a lot of areas that we fall into difficulties, and in the last episode we talked about this, like we're going to cover some of these. So let's jump into it. I spent some time thinking about that, and from my personal experience, like what I have faced as far as like pitfalls from constantly trying to study and improve myself. Did you have a little bit of time to think about, like that realm?
Oh, big time. Because before I got into a lot of spiritual stuff, probably give or take 15 years ago, I went down a super deep self-development, personal growth, that type of course in my life. And in the beginning, it's exciting, it's fun, there's possibilities, it's the whole, you can do whatever you want with your life, and here's some ways to do it. And there is so much information, right? So a lot of self-development, in my opinion, is not good for X amount of people, and this is good for them, but it's not good for that. And just like diets, just like fads, you can get really caught and really tangled into it. And quite honestly, I did. And I got to a point where I was looking for perfectionism. Nothing was enough, like nothing. I was comparing myself to way bigger people that were way more successful than me and thinking I will never even come close to that. And then creating too many rules of, they say do this, so I must do that. And then I don't do that, and I feel hypocritical and feel like I'm less than. So there was a huge trap in I'll just say self-development, but it can kind of be all-encompassing, just life in general, trying to be the best person you can be, and then realizing that a lot of it's challenging, and then you go negative and go backwards because it's not the proper things are put in place. So I've experienced that. What's your experience, if I might ask?
Yeah, it's funny is because I sat down and I made a short list, and you already nailed on pretty much the equivalent of what I was going to say. I know that the first thing is when I found the self-development world, I had already been in business for a while, and like a lot of that stuff just blew my mind, because a lot of the self-development stuff, it speaks to knowledge and wisdom that most of us already have. Like maybe we're at level 1 and you can take it to a level 20. And so like hearing this stuff about self-development and like the most important things that we can focus on, it was just like you said, it was exciting and it lit up my soul. And I felt like, if I can just master these areas, it'll take everything to the next level. And I had these unrealistic expectations about what was possible. And so I kind of fell into the same thing of comparing myself to these other people that were a lot farther down their journey than I was. And you get to the point where I was remember telling me like, I'm not growing fast enough. I'm not getting the same results of these people. I'm not as far as along as these people. And when I started comparing myself to them, like, then I got down on myself. And so it can create kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like this feedback loop of, like intense motivation. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm not doing good enough. And then almost a depression. So I kind of fall into this cycle. That was, I think, one of the biggest pitfalls for me of the self-development world, is because you're seeing all of these people who are just wildly successful and sharing their wisdom advice, and then it's just human nature to compare ourselves. So that's something to be super mindful of. And
And
then
then you
my
get having patience, and then things aren't coming fast enough, and it's just you want to be that 22-year-old millionaire that you see on the YouTube, and you're not even close to that. It's hard.
definitely, definitely. It's like, well, how, what's the difference? Why are they making it versus, why am I not making it? What am I doing wrong? What are they doing right? And, to realize that we all, have our own paths, and we all have our own journeys. And like that 22-year-old millionaire, like, he may be financially abundant, but his personal life could be absolute garbage. Like, he could, when he wakes up in the morning, he might hate himself and hate his life, but on the outside it looks fantastic. So, like, to compare ourselves with other people and where they're at, it's like setting yourself up for massive amounts of pain, unnecessary pain. So I think that's huge. That's huge, and I'm glad you touched on that. The next
Well,
one that
it's a there's a huge slippery slope in everything, and yeah, you can go into feelings of isolation and feeling like you're alone and you're never going to get to a certain place, and um, that person on YouTube is somebody that you look up to, but maybe they're a false idol. Who knows? You never judge, so you never judge even on Instagram what people's lives are. You just take out what's good, but there's there's the whole idea, even let alone self-development world, let's say religious world or spiritual world. It's just trying to become your best self in a, let's say, a spiritual sense, and learning about meditation, and then doing it for 5 years, and then your monkey mind is still attached to negative feelings, and you still have uh, things that you are lashing out at, and you're just going, I'm never going to be a person that can meditate like the big spiritual leaders, like the Buddha, or whatever. um, you know, then you get stuck in that self development trap in religion and in spirituality. So there's that whole idea of the dark side of spirituality and spiritual bypassing and the stuff that we've already talked about. But having faith in something bigger and greater than yourself can be the greatest thing ever. It can be a detriment. It can be a detriment because you're waiting for something to help you or save you, or versus doing it yourself, even though faith is an absolute incredible motivator. So it's just like fear. Fear can be the greatest motivator ever to some, and it can be paralyzing and be awful. So there's an idea that you find your source, you find your energy, then find your rocket ship that will move you, but it's different for absolutely everyone. That's why you never judge. It can be passion, and sometimes passions don't work for others. Sometimes somebody has to be stoic and they have to be emotionless, and that's their vice. So finding the vice that works. You ever gotten into stoicism?
Oh yeah, yeah, I love Stoicism.
Yeah, stoicism, and just like, I don't know what the right word is, but being beyond and seeing, and having more of a middle route, which is kind of like Taoism. You ever gotten to Taoism?
A little bit, yeah. I'm.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
I was just gonna say I'm kind of starting to dive down that rabbit hole now.
Good. Because
Yeah.
Taoism's the whole like middle path, and it's the yin and the yang, the masculine and feminine, the light and the dark, to understand you need both sides, and to get into these states where kind of like no matter what happens, you're still the same person. There's an example in Taoism about like a river. That I was reading a book where sometimes the river runs fast, sometimes it runs slow, sometimes there's big rocks and boulders, sometimes there's nothing. But the whole idea is the Tao is always present, always there. The river is always there. There's always, it's just a matter of how fast, how slow it goes. If there's obstacles, that doesn't matter. The Tao is always there and always flowing, and you are the Tao. So it's like your emotions always flow up and down. Like in Stoicism, you don't want to get too happy or too sad.
Yep.
So even in going back into personal self-development and growth, like you might not want to rock the boat too much, because guess what? Maybe your friends and family members will ostracize you, and then that will cause even more problems. And it might even hurt you more. And on the flip side, it might help you, and you can find new friends. But that's what I'm saying. It's like you got to be, in my opinion, you can't just read a book and say do these 10 steps and then adopt a hustler mentality and try to rule the world and work 24/7, and all of a sudden your life goes haywire. You have having lack of balance, you're always wanting more, you're never thinking you're good enough, creating too many rules in your life and all that stuff. There's no balance, there's no stoicism, there's no middle path. And that can be the challenge that anyone can have in spirituality, religion, self development, personal growth. There's things to really think about, because the mind will latch onto things, especially as you're young. And what I don't want is for people to get stuck in ways that I did, in perfectionism and never thinking it's good enough. So, what's the key to it all is love, compassion, higher understanding, patience, and getting a mentor. Probably mentors are huge.
Yeah. Well, and something that I really like that it seemed to kind of be a core of what you were just talking about is maintaining balance. So, like through the whole process, emotionally and physically, and the things that you're reading and your expectations is always to maintain balance. So, like your expectations, like financial abundance, but then also, on the flip side, a work-life balance. So that, like you said, like working your life away, working 24/7. I guess it depends on what your goals are, but I mean, I think ultimately, like one of the most important things that we can do is to maintain a level of appreciation and gratitude and love in our day-to-day life. And if you're spending your time working 24 hours a day and taking no time for taking care of yourself, like it's going to lead to an unhappy life. And when you start to feel unhappy, you're going to start making poor decisions, and when you start making poor decisions, next thing you know, you're kind of tumbling down a rabbit hole that doesn't lead where you want to go.
No,
And
have you ever seen? I heard people talk about the whole idea that the analogy that we're just a meat suit, and to think of, oh, the Colter is off, I need to balance it, or oh, the Nate is off, I need to balance it, and make kind of like make it that you're like a machine, or it's not you, and you're just something that you can. Oh, we're just a little bit off. I need to meditate. I need to sleep more, and then I'll be better. I like that analogy. It's like, oh, the meat suit is angry. It's not really me, but the meat suit is jealous. And so it creates that awareness that, I'm something bigger than that. I'm pure love. I'm awareness. But this body right now, this body's stressed, and this meat suit, oh, it wants love. It feels like it doesn't have enough love. And then what you can do is kind of going back to what we talked about last time, is you can look at yourself from a higher perspective and give your body love, give your mind love, and create that separation of different consciousnesses to transcend it. And what happens is people get stuck in the pain body. And for those that don't know the pain body is all the emotions, sensations, feelings that get trapped in us, that usually are hurt us, and the body just holds on to them. And that's when, if there's not that positive outlet, that's when you lash out. That's when you beat yourself up, because energy has to move. It has to be released. If it doesn't be released out of your mind, out of your body, it will go into the cellular memory, and then all of a sudden, old emotions for 20 years, and you don't know about it, and then it has to come out some way.
so hey, Colter, I want to get back to the pitfalls falls of self-development, but you're talking about this pain body and the emotions, and I think that this is something that's really important that we spend a little bit of time on.
Yes,
So
please.
Yeah. So when you're talking about then the pain body and eliminating those, finding outlets, like what kind of outlets can people like? I know that everybody probably releases differently, but what are some of the most common or typical ones that you would recommend?
In the general scope of life, exercise is better than everything. It's like, obviously meditation. If you're, especially if you're going a spiritual path, but it's not. People are doing meditation now just to feel better and calm themselves down. Because anything that taps into what I call your inner guidance system. So you gotta feel like anything that is to feel. So even talking to a spouse or a lover or something and being open and vulnerable, that's a way of communication because it kind of goes back to the whole love languages thing where a lot of different people have different love languages. Some people like touch, some people like to talk about stuff, some people like gifts and acts of service and quality time. Well, you got to figure out your own love language and what makes you self care the most. So when the pain body hits and you're quote unquote off, it's like, do you need a massage? Do you need to talk to a good friend? And instead of complaining about your life, maybe you say everything is good. Having a connection with God and spirit is whatever that means to you, taking a walk and having a friend in God that can help you. Those are all vices. You must just, I do like hot baths a lot. I do teas and being happy, just gifts, acts of service, and a lot of times when people are really hurting, usually they need community and they need a sense of purpose. So finding a way that you can help out others, because the whole idea of depression is usually when you're self-focused way too much, and it's just too much identification on the I. So you change it out to the we and try to figure out how to help other people. So it's all cliche stuff that probably everyone knows, but it's like do it and when to do what and what really will sing to your soul at this particular moment because sometimes it's not always the same.
Right. Yeah, I think something else when you're talking that sprung up in my mind too is for the artistic creative crowd is to just create. I mean, that's kind of bringing in all of our awareness and what we're capable of to create. So if you like music, create music. If you like to paint or draw, paint and draw. And I think that that's a really effective way to move energy or move emotion through your body.
And I'll give you another example. So in the last podcast, we talked about the whole die before you die. Die before you die, meaning die to the illusions, die to all the conditioning aspects of society, of yourself that you put there that holds you back that you might not even know about. So this last weekend, we did a couple die before you die events. So
Uh,
having a spiritual death and rebirth, and it was incredible. And the whole point of it, as we talked about before, is you put people in a safe, comfortable environment where they can be open, they can feel like either they're led by somebody that knows what they're doing, or they just feel safe in general. That's the biggest thing in self help, spirituality, all this stuff is to feel safe, to feel open, vulnerable. So you find that with this partner, with a meditation CD, whatever, you create that space, the sacred space, either through ritual, and magic happens. So on Sunday, I mean, I can't even tell you the stuff that happened. It was unreal.
well,
Late. Go ahead.
and let's get into that here in a little bit. Let's
Okay.
finish up because I definitely want to touch on that and I want to talk about your experiences there. But let's finish up. I think that we didn't quite get through all of the pitfalls of self development. So um, I think okay. So something else that I made note of, and I'm sure that you probably have seen this too, is diving into all learning and then no action. So like spending too much time reading, from a whole bunch of different authors, and while every book may contain information that can like transform your life, but never taking, doing the action steps and implementing the things that you learned.
Sure. It's only a potential power, and that's part of the equation. Only part of the equation.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of what you do with the information is that's the critical in achieving your goals. So, you know why sometimes people get stuck in that?
Hmm.
Brain chemistry, you get dopamine hits and you get rushes and you get all these amazing like yeah possibilities, and it actually can be very pleasurable. and you're thinking, oh, I can do all this stuff, and the mind is firing and the neurons are firing, and then you become consumed with learning, which is great in the sense of, if you're not learning, you're not evolving in certain ways, but you become too focused on that, and you get these good feelings while reading. Sometimes it's a escapement of some sort, and it can be a bypass to
Hmm.
actually put in the not put in the work, or to put in the work, and then it just becomes this, the universe gives you what you want. It's neutral. So the universe says, oh, you want to learn? I'm going to give you more things to learn about. And it's just an endless cycle, like healing. Like, oh, you feel like you're not healed. Oh, well, the universe says, I'm going to give you more ways to heal yourself, and it's opposed to feeling whole and complete. That's a fine line. It's a fine line in anything. Manifestation is usually what people want in their life. They don't usually say what they want in their life. They say what they don't want first. And when you do that in the learn, like, well, I don't want to be, poor. I don't want to be like this. And so the universe is going to teach you all that, but it can be a lot, and it can overwhelm some people. And fears can come up, and then all of a sudden you're just reading instead of doing.
Totally. I never made that connection about the dopamine hits to the form of education, as you're learning, but I think you're totally on point there. Because every time you read something and you explore this new possibility, and then you, like, just like what you're saying, you think about all the ways that you could do it, and then, oh, dopamine wore off, on to the next one. That's
Yeah,
interesting. That's
just like
interesting.
anything in life, when you have a high and like see all the possibilities, then life comes crashing down. You're like, oh, that's going to be hard to implement, and then you don't do it.
And then, so the last note that I made for the dangers of self, or the pitfalls of self development, was, and this one kind of goes along with the very first thing that we talked about comparing self, but it's hero worship. That means, so you find one person, and not to pick on him, but like Tony Robbins, so many people have consumed what he has put out there and created, and for a good reason, because I mean the guy has changed a lot of lives, and what he talks about is very valid. But falling into this area of hero worship, where we just find one person, one process, one belief pattern, one religion, one form of spirituality, and then we make that the end all be all, like that's all that there is, and we block out everything else. And I've seen that happen before, and the it limits. I think it limits possibility. What are your thoughts on hero worship?
It's I don't know what the right word is. It's a scary slope, because it is that whole, you call it maybe false idols, because you're more than likely not going to get as successful as Tony Robbins. You're more than likely not going to get as successful as certain types of, I don't know, religious leaders or just spiritual gurus or whatever. It's a very slippery slope to have a mentor or teacher that is enlightened in some way somehow, that is actually, achieved a level of status or success that you want, but to not get to their level can be very frustrating to the ego, and that hits all the other stuff we just talked about with comparison and stuff. um, so what I've learned is the fine line of, you find the coach and the mentor like a Tony Robbins, and implement what feels good without being impatient, and being kind to yourself, and not having the perfectionism, but you take responsibility for your actions, for your everything in that moment, and realize what you truly can and can't do, and the wisdom to know the difference. That whole saying, like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I guess accept the things I can change, to and not change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's kind of like that with you. And you can get really stuck in self and absorbed in the self if you're just out trying to do it yourself, right? And then you can get really absorbed in false idols, or people that are way more successful than you, and go too extreme in that regard. So it's going and finding the middle path. And the analogy I was going to talk about with the class was the whole, like, you create the safe space and you create the rituals inside yourself, and try to, like, feel things out, and be your best coach and be your best self. if you're stretching too far one way or the other, it creates the equilibrium and then balance. So always the whole mind body spirit connection, where you're staying out of, you get out of your comfort zone, but you get out of your comfort zone in ways that are fulfilling, in ways that are enriching, where you don't stretch yourself too much to where your whole world gets shaken. Easier said than done, but it's a beautiful balance to find what flows with you and what doesn't.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. So when you talk about when you find what flows with you and what doesn't, like what how does somebody tap into that to find what works best?
I love it. So, well, there's an example that I like to always think about is the idea that the universe or God or whatever you want to say is an intelligence, and it will give you clues and hints along the way. And it will do it in every way imaginable, through people, through books, through music, through movies, through your own thoughts, through everything. And it's the idea that, have you ever heard that analogy that when airplane goes from one destination to another, 97% of it's 97% of the time it's off course. You ever heard that?
Yes. Yes.
So it's kind of that, where you're always looking to find your peak, your enlightenment, your self realization at whatever state you're at, but you're always trying to kind of like maneuver a little bit here, a little bit there. So it's the idea that the Colter is off. Like, okay, the Colter needs rest, the Colter needs food or whatever. And you're just always trying to slightly rebalance. So what I would say to people is be intensely visual and feeling of absolutely everything and really tap into your intuition. So your intuition usually comes from the gut. It comes a split second before the thoughts. It comes a split second, usually even before the heart, because the heart itself can actually lie to you in a lot of ways. It's too much sometimes. When people are in love, they lose the rationality and it can be a little much. But you want to tap into a second guidance system that usually is not wrong. So it's the idea that comes to mind that says, okay, you drink coffee every day and it's amazing. Well, a couple of days, throws you off. Well, what's your internal guidance system saying? It's like maybe coffee isn't good for you for a while, or anything. Maybe this person isn't good for you. Well, your internal guidance system will help you, and then it's just seeing the clues. It's seeing everything. It's having the conversation with somebody and seeing those synchronicities and going, wait a sec, I just had a meditation about that, and then you talked about that, and now I'm feeling feelings in my stomach that, ooh, this is good. Like I need to not do this and start doing that. That's all it really is. It's a guidance system to know that you have all the answers, all the connections, all right away inside of you. You just need to tap into it. And whether
So
that's a solo or with somebody that can teach you, it's all there for you.
I love what you're saying there because I know that I can just pull from my own life. Time and time again, when I ignored my gut, when I ignored my intuition, I usually ended up paying for it. And so it's been a long journey learning, really what the intuition is and how to pay attention to it. In your experience and in your studies, have you come across anything where you could say, like you could help people learn how to tune into their intuition?
Yes. Every which way. Now, the one caveat is with any of that, my opinion, for most, it's hard to do yourself if you're not conditioned to meditate, if your central nervous system is flamed up and you're not doing yoga or breath work, or you can't calm the body, you can't calm the mind, because what's going to happen is you're only going to get into surface level stuff a lot of times. You're gonna try to think things through and just get frustrated and stay in the pain body. And that's not everyone. I'm just saying in generalities, it's harder than others. So you find ways through community, through a lot of things like sound therapy and crystal bowls or meditation seeds or something to get outside yourself and find that sacred space to where you're comfortable and you're open and allowing. And there's the idea that you want to be vulnerable without judgment. So it's becoming that witness that we talked about before, is becoming that person outside yourself and finding, I keep saying it, like find that sacred space, find that safe space to where you can be open with yourself without judgment, then you can just explore. And some people, it's as simple as just walking in nature and feeling with nature and feeling a greater connection. And you ever heard of this is a side note, but there's an idea, a shamanic trick where you go on shamanic walks and nature will talk to you and it'll provide you answers. Have you ever heard this before?
No, I haven't, but I believe it.
This is tying into almost exactly what we're talking about, where you can go out in nature and the idea that nature provides clues. Nature can give you the answers you're looking for, just like I was saying that the divine works in everything, in movies and books. And when you're open and in that right frequency and vibration, the universe will give you the answers. So in shamanism, some people will say, go propose a question and say, what do I want to do with my life, right? So you
Hmm.
start looking out at nature, and instead of thinking too much, you use your intuition. And your intuition will lead you to something. The first thing that gives you like a ping in your gut, you're like, ooh, and maybe it's a tree with four different branches going four different ways. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to immediately interpret that without thinking what that branch means to you. And what happens is when you connect to that emotional inner guidance system, it's like magic can happen. And you'll say, oh, that four trees, the four limbs, that's my past. That's the first time I did this and it didn't work. The second time it was a little bit higher up, in the tree branch and I was still doing good, but this derailed me. But these last two, I need to go this direction and whatever it's interpreted to you. And then all of a sudden you'll have this interpretation and you'll be like, wow, I tapped into myself. And the whole idea is to just do it with your gut, do it internally. Ask the universe and you'll receive. Ask God and you'll receive. Ask yourself and you receive. It's all within you. I hope that's a good analogy, but there's so many ways you can do that.
What you just said spoke to me, man, and especially it's kind of funny that you're talking about this and you brought up this idea about walking in nature and letting the things around you interpret for you. And from my own experiences, I truly do believe that the answers that we seek, just like what you're saying, when you ask, you will receive. Um, it's being open and being aware and being conscious, and observing. But just the other day, I stopped and I was walking through the woods to clear my mind, and I was thinking about what I'm doing here with profound shifts, and it's wild that you mentioned this thing in nature because I saw something that was really interesting, and that whole process that you just described happened within me as I was walking on a well-worn trail that I've walked many times. A tree had fallen in one of the last windstorms, and it's funny because the tree wasn't huge. People could go over it. Yet, in the matter of probably a week or two, they had already worn a trail that went around the tree. And I know that everybody who's listening is probably like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But it spoke to me on the level of what humanity will do, because it wasn't just one person that walked around that tree. It was multiple people that left that trail, and they carved a new trail. So I guess it answered a lot of internal questions that are probably go too deep for me to try to explain on this one podcast. But what I'm trying to say is that like I literally just experienced what you were talking about, and it spoke to me on such a deep level that I think that it probably influenced the direction of what I'm doing with my work with profound shifts and the videos that we make. So I think that's huge.
You already did it.
Yep, already did
I'll
it
give, wow.
unintentionally.
I'll give you another self-development pitfall, spirituality pitfall that um, relates exactly what we were talking to. It's the idea of being fixed on one way of receiving information and closed off to others.
Hmm.
So some will say what we just said is hocus pocus, right?
Yep.
And whatever. Nature can't talk to you or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's fine. That's their reality. You have free will and you can choose. Others, say maybe books are better, but it's the idea that even spirituality. When I was going through my spiritual state, I mean, quite honestly, I wanted God to talk to me. I wanted an angel to come say, this is the keys to life, and all your prayers are going to be answered if you do this, this, and this. And hoping that a supernatural experience would happen in a meditation, and it didn't happen for years, and it frustrated me so much to the point of detriment. But it's the idea that God, spirit, life, life force, the Tao, whatever you want to call it, speaks in every ways. It speaks in mysterious ways. So notice how your kid talks to you. Notice how the person down the street that you just say hi to, maybe they want to have a conversation. That conversation sparks something. It's literally everywhere, every which way. But the challenge is if you say something like, even in my breathwork classes and meditations, and even last weekend, the whole die before you die, some people might have the intention of, let's say, releasing pain, and all of a sudden, 20, 30 minutes in, they're in a completely different tangent, and they're going through things that they did not realize or didn't even want to go through, because the universe, God, yourself, your intelligence of your body says, no, we got to work on this before that can happen. That's another pitfall, just waiting for one answer, but realizing there's so much other things that have to be dealt with before that can come up, and to not judge yourself when that process takes place, to know that there's always work, there's always growth. And the whole Tony Robbins thing, I think, or Jim Rohn thing was, the only people that don't have problems are dead people. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. So being open to everything and not fixed on one thing, that's beautiful too.
Totally. Yeah. Being okay with the journey and accepting struggle. Like I know that there's a certain, and that's, when I say that, accepting struggle, I feel like there's two different ways that we could look at it, because you could look at it from one point of view and say that when you realize what life is, there is no struggle. But then there's the other side of life where, duality, the yin and yang, like there's always going to be the dark and there's always going to be the light. So there's always going to be struggle. There's always going to be peace and joy. So, I guess I really don't know how to reconcile those two thoughts, but being okay with knowing that there are going to be days where you're going to feel like absolute crap, and there are going to be days when you feel like you're on top of the world. And like you were saying earlier, being able to bring yourself into balance on both of those days. So when you're feeling absolute poo, you look at yourself and say, well, today my body is not quite up to snuff, but that doesn't mean that I can't continue on my journey. And on the days when you're feeling like you're on top of the world, it's like, wow, I appreciate the way I'm feeling today. Tomorrow probably won't be like this. Does that kind of make sense to you, what I'm saying there? Any thoughts
big
to add to
time.
that?
Yeah, there's the other thing that's challenging in life in general is the idea that, okay, we have free will, you are fully in control of reality. Everything can happen to you if you put your mind to it, that type of stuff, where in the true sense, quantumly, everything is possible. There's that, like, there's all that energy that, I'm forgetting the term of it right now, potential energy that can literally create anything and everything imaginable. But we're in the third dimension, third reality. We have physical bodies that are, frail and finite. We have, collective energies and people and situations that are already set up, that are, the macro is bigger than the micro. So the fine line is that balance of, how much can I do in my body before it fails me, for instance? How much can I stretch my mind out and be out of my comfort zone before it overtakes me and it's actually a bad thing? I think the whole big lesson and all that, this is, like we talked about, is finding the middle path and just being kind to yourself and just being in that energy state that you allow everything to happen. You're in full control. You're in your destiny, but then there's potentially parts where you need to surrender, and parts when you need to let go and say, yeah, sometimes the body's going to hurt, but I'm going to surrender into it to release it and let it go. Beautiful, beautiful path if you allow things to flow through you. Very, very challenging if you block the energy and give into it.
Well, and I think, with something that goes right along with what you're saying there is, I've been reading I want to make sure I say this right, Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm explaining that, but one of the core essential concepts of it is no expectation, so having no expectation in whatever you're doing.
How free is that?
Yeah.
So free.
Yeah. I'm working on that one. Okay, so you were talking about this group session that you did, the Die Before You Die, and I want to jump into that. So can you tell me one? I know that we talked a little bit about it in a couple of our previous conversations, but can you kind of touch on your thought process that led you to start doing this, and then talk about the experience and how it
Sure.
went?
It's literally exactly what we talked about, the reasons why. There's so many pitfalls to spirituality, so many pitfalls to just trying to be a better person, that you that when people can't do themselves, when they're lost or just want guidance or just something pique their interest, is to create a ceremony slash ritual slash situation that they can tap into themselves better. It's really all it is. And but this particular one was a idea that for an hour you're writing out your funeral, and you're realizing what happens if you die, because life is fragile, life could end at any moment. And to bring up these emotions in a safe space to where people are writing out their funeral and they're all already crying, they're already just in this state of just, wow, what if I died? So having this opportunity to really explore your feelings and emotions, hopefully in a non-judgmental way, that's powerful in itself. So then what we did is we took people into a extended, almost 3 hour breathwork meditation journey. That it's like, okay, for the next hour, you're going to breathe and release everything that doesn't serve you, limitations, people, your work, thoughts, emotions. Let it out for the next hour, and the breathwork is incredibly powerful. You
Totally.
do that, and then guide them into, okay, now you're dead. You are physically dead. Let's transcend and let your body go into whatever you feel the afterlife is. Everybody's different, and explore there. So then we explored there for a half hour, and oh my god, it was pure magic. People, I got insights, they got intuition hits, they got going back to the very first podcast we did, it literally will pierce the veil of reality, and you will feel, uh, I don't even know what the right word is. You will feel the presence of spirit, and people, dead relatives, unreal stuff, out of body experiences where they were transcending the cosmos and they were one with the universe. I mean, I'm not over embellishing it. That's what happened. And to some, doesn't everyone doesn't happen to everyone. Some get deeper than others, but that goes into that whole, like, finding that just spirit inside of you, that intuition, and going into these states to retrieve information. In shamanism, there's a thing called soul retrieval, and all where you go and retrieve aspects of self that you lost, that you gave away willingly or unwillingly. These types of things, you can do that, and through deep hypnotherapy, for instance, or deep meditation, you can go in and take back your power and go into these die situations, going, you know what, this conditioning thought really hurt me. I'm going to release it and take back my energy. So when people come back to their bodies, it's a quote unquote rebirth, to where they feel more alive, awake, and aware of their true aspects of self, and what are the false egoic assumptions that are holding them back. Unbelievably powerful, unbelievably. And it's just creating that space to let people go into repressed emotions, not feel depressed. There's a big difference to be, feel emotional and maybe have that depression feeling, but also how it's so good to just cry. There's that paradoxical unity and all this stuff, to where I've had people say, man, I just felt so sad, but it felt so good at the same time. You want to find those stoic centers and that Tao middle path to just connect with your true self. And then guidance happens, love happens. It all happens for you because you're so connected.
Well, yeah, and like you were saying too, I mean, to take the time to actually feel it, to feel the emotions that are there that normally we repress or we push away. And so, like, the difference between, the depression and feeling sad is when you're able to take the time to feel it and process and purge. I think that there's something beautiful in that. I think anyone that's sat down and had a real good cry session knows about the feeling of purging emotions and how beneficial that could be on the other side.
Everything's neutral. Even the idea that if you get so deep in depression and you say, what's the point of this? what's the point of everything? I mean, we're all going to die anyways, or whatever your rationale is. You can still get to those states and notice there's always, always, always a deeper underlying truth, a deeper underlying energy to it that is yet to discover. So the example right there is if you say, this life isn't worth living, what's the point? I'm going to die anyways. What if you went a little bit deeper, relaxed, and got out of your pain body, out of your fear, and realized, oh my God, I'm free. There is, wait, if there is nothing that I actually have to do, then I'm free to do whatever I want to do. Oh my God, that's incredible. It's amazing. So there's always that underlying feeling. Now that can open up different sensations and going, you can't go and rob a bank or whatever because you can do anything. It doesn't work like that. There's universal laws and there's things that hold in place. Like we could talk about another time with that. That's incredible how the universe creates structure and order to understand itself to its best capacity. And that we could talk, but it's that idea that there's always a deeper understanding, always a deeper learning aspect. And in the quantum world, once one door opens, infinite realities can manifest themselves. So the freedom can lead to liberation. The liberation can lead to enlightenment. The enlightenment can lead to, becoming ascended in a way to where you have deeper knowledge and you can help others. And all of a sudden, you're the spirit, you're a teacher for others, and X amount of time ago, you were the depressed one. It's just going on the deeper levels and not judging yourself, finding those deeper truths that are hidden inside of you that are always there.
So, back to the breathwork session that you did with this 3 hour journey. So, what I have here, maybe I missed something, or maybe we didn't finish. You focused on for the first hour, letting out emotions, things that didn't serve you. Then for 30 minutes, you processed actually being physically dead and feeling, like the presence of spirit and anything that went along with that. What was the other hour and a half?
The first part was writing out intentions and being like, what if you really died? What if today was your last day? That kind of like what if. And then
Okay.
the last part was integration. So
Integration.
yeah, you're imagining that the energy of you in the afterlife, your soul, your essence, yourself, the whatever you want to call it, consciousness that transcends space and time, that is you before your life, that is you during your life, and is you during after your life. Realize that it's something that transcends the body. When you're in that heaven state, you can pull that energy in, and through visualization and just allowance, you can pull that energy in to open up your body and to feel recharged and rebirthed. And as you're doing that, you're seeing your life what you want. You're visualizing, you're sensing, because it's called source coding. When you're in that extreme vibration where you're so open, you just did an hour of intense breath work, you were just in heaven, you maybe got a guidance, you can actually set the vibration off into your reality, into the universe, way deeper and way stronger. So I had them visualize and feel what their life is like without these constrictions, without these limitations, without the illusions, and dying to those aspects. They're dead. So when you come back, you can just flow into your natural state more. So we visualized that, felt that, and reintegrated the body. And once we got into the body, we felt ourselves as whole and complete. Huge for so many people, just even for a moment to feel whole and complete. That note that tells your conscious mind, your subconscious mind tells the universe that it's possible and anything's possible. And that in itself, even just for a second, can change the vibration of your life.
Oh man, that sounds so powerful. And I think just like what you said, like if you can tap into it and realize that it's possible once, you know that you can do it again, and that can
That's the
be
power in
your state.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah, power in
Beautiful.
everything. And that's why self development is so amazing. That's why spirituality is so amazing. That's like all this stuff we talk about. It says it gives you the possibilities because the universe is limitless, life is limitless. But certain things aren't for everyone. There's still discernment. There's still internal knowledge that you need to know. That there's. Do you know how many religions there are in the world? Just FYI,
I have no idea.
there's over 4,200. Go look it up.
That's wild.
4,200. So you can't, it's one of those things where you can't be a part of 4,200 of them. So which one works for you? And it might not work for other people. And some people think, there's one way and there's others. I'm not going to get into that. That's not the point. The point
Yeah.
is it's limitless choices in everything.
Yeah.
So You choose your way and be kind to yourself.
Well, yeah,
You'll never go wrong.
and if look at your life like you're writing a book and focus on the chapter that you're in now, one chapter at a time.
I like that a lot. You're
Yeah,
writing your own book. You're writing your own story.
yeah, yep.
Dude,
All right.
you are a master interviewer. Gosh, great
Thanks,
questions.
brother. I appreciate it. All right, so so back to this die before you die. Is there anything else? I mean, like who's this? Who is this best for? I mean, is this good for beginners? Is it more for intermediates? Like who's your ideal person that would want to do that?
Anybody that's looking to grow.
There
So
you go.
that's just one way of tapping into yourself, and it's beautiful. It can go deep. I mean, there's certain religions and spiritual teaching. Wow, they'll bury themselves, halfway in the ground and meditate for days on their own mortality, and that they'll take the bones of their love, their relatives that have died, just to understand that life is so precious, and that's the extreme. I'm just giving that as an example of you can take anything to the extreme. But dying to everything that doesn't serve you on a daily basis is so beautiful, and change the semantics from die to it doesn't serve me or whatever. That's the beauty in realizing that you can de-armor yourself at any time, that you can release everything cellular, physical, as you go through thoughts and emotions, because if you understand quantumly, everything's a vibration. So the vibration just has to be shifted and changed just a little bit, and you can die to this and die to that and release that and let go of that and let life in. And quite honestly, that might even be the best route for other people. Instead of releasing, letting go, maybe you're bringing in. You're always bringing in the goodness. You are love. You're transcending anything, and you know that what doesn't serve you just vanishes, it goes away. That's why the universe is God. Life has infinite choices and infinite realities. Maybe you just want to be love at all times, and you don't have to release, because it goes back to even that whole too much information, too much learning. Well, you're going to keep learning. Too much, if you feel like you're sick, well, God says, the universe says, I'll give you more things to be sick about if you're stuck on it. Same thing about releasing and letting go. I'll give you more reasons to release and let go, as opposed to feeling whole. So that's when you need to know in your life where you're at, what you need to do. The internal guidance system is always there. Just find your ways to tap into it.
Man, what you said right there is so huge. So many people are looking for help outside of themselves. And when we realize that our bodies, our intuition, our spirit, however you want to say it, has the ability to heal, we have the ability to heal ourselves if we know how to go about it. And I think that's what's so huge about what you're offering with these classes that you're doing, these workshops, is you're giving people the ability and the space to let themselves heal. And that's profound. I mean, that's so profound.
They're tapping into the quantum field, and like not everyone wants to or understand quantum physics and the mind-blowing realities of that, for instance. But guess what they're doing? They're doing exactly that. They're tapping into these different frequencies and different states and different realities and zero point energy states and their torus energy fields and different brainwave patterns and vibrational tones and all this stuff. They're literally tapping into their infinite reality through these quantum states, and they don't even know it, because you don't need to know it. The whole point of life in general too is you don't need to know every aspect, every chemical that happens in the brain when you breathe, like we talked about before. You don't need to know every minute detail. Just set up that space, tap into yourself. It will literally work out one way or another, and have patience, because everything sometimes takes time to unfold. We have the buffer of time, and it'll work out. Just stick with it. Don't give up.
Yeah. Well, it's like you don't need to know how to use a cell phone to make a phone call.
For sure.
You don't need to know how to build a cell phone, I should say, or how it operates to make a phone call. And press the buttons and go for it. Let it do its work for you. There was something that I wanted to ask you or tap into before we finish. Oh, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So this idea of what you're talking about, quantum physics and the ability to tap into that 0 point to heal yourself. From the research that I've done and the direction, just the direction that I see us going, I believe that that's going to be the future of healthcare and wellness. Like I think typical Western medicine is going to always have its place for broken bones and car accidents. But for true healing, true wellness, we're learning we're relearning this ancient wisdom, that emotions and illness and disease, they're all tied together. And the farther that we go down this path, the more and more that this is going to become the path to wellness. And I think what we're seeing now is, obviously pharmaceutical corporations and the whole system doesn't want to see this, because you can't make money from meditation or people learning to heal themselves if they're not selling pills. So, the more that your work that you're doing can be presented to people, and the more people that can heal and feel the effects in their own lives, and then go talk to people about how profound it was, the faster that we're going to bring down these corrupt systems that in a sense are killing off and enslaving humanity. My personal opinion.
Yeah, your personal opinion. Absolutely. It's like proving to yourself and others that it's possible, and it might take grassroots efforts, but it could be that tipping point, that 99 monkey theory, where look at yoga. Yoga boomed, and some people just think it's it's a physical practice, it's just for exercise, and other think it's a way to God realization or whatever. Kind of like that with anything and everything, where meditation can be that way, where fasting can be that way, where just learning to control your thoughts and with self-development or whatever can be that way. It's just anything can blow up at any time, and then we realize the possibility so powerful, that our minds are so strong. The whole Bruce, I think it's Bruce Lipton or Joe Dispenza, I'm forgetting which one, Joe Dispenza maybe, his book, You Are the Placebo. It is so true of just the mind creates its reality, and the body can heal itself. And try fasting for 3 days, and your body will start healing itself. For some people, others it might not. That might not be the right path, but the body and mind can do so many things if we just get out of our own way and allow it.
Yes, totally. All right, and with that, I think that we have hit a good place to end this episode. So you guys, if you haven't already, you got to go over and check out Colter's website, coltersmith.com. Is that correct?
You got it.
All right. Until then, we'll catch you on the next episode, guys. Peace out.
Bye-bye.